Today we're going to be doing something I've been really excited to do, and that's compare the Flair Pro 2 versus the Flair 58. So we have the second highest and most expensive Flair that was out there that everybody loved for a long time, and we have the brand new, just released Flair 58, and we're going to compare them side by side in what I like between the two and why I would choose one over the other. But before we dive into that, I just want to say welcome to Kabin's Coffee Corner, and I ask that you please like and subscribe, and this really helps me produce more content. If you want to purchase one of these, please use the link below. I'll make a slight commission at no extra charge to you. I also have a lot of videos coming out this week comparing all of these together, and I'm going to throw a robot into a comparison soon, so you're going to want to see that as well. So I'm really excited for this, and let's go ahead and dive into this. So first off, I do want to mention that this is a upgraded Flair Pro 1 to the Flair Pro 2. The only difference right here is the color of this plastic on things and the rubber, and then there's no grip right here. Other than that, it's the exact same thing. I changed the brew head and the portafilter to the Pro 2 version, so that is the same that we got here. So with the Flair Pro, we have the stainless steel tamper, we have a dosing cup and plastic tamper, if you will, a dosing funnel. We have a preheat cap, which means you can just simply put this brew head onto this cap and fill it with hot water, preheat it that way. Your dispersion screen and your portafilter right here. You have your spout option, and you have your entire brew head and your pressure gauge. The temp strip is an addition that I added onto it as well. And then you have a 2-in-1 drip tray. This also collapses, and it comes with this travel carry case, so you can throw this in your backpack, you can bring it on a plane, all of that fun stuff with this one. So that's the accessories you get with the Flair Pro 2. Flair 58. Oh, there's a lot of different features on this. So first off, we have the 58mm tamper here. I like this tamper. The tamper works well. I hate the finish of the tamper. The tamper kind of makes me a little uncomfortable when I touch the finish of it. That's just me. I don't know really how to explain it. It kind of reminds me of the feel of a chalkboard. You have this rubber drip tray, which it's a drip tray. It gets the job done. You have a longer extended lever and grip at the end of the lever and some wooden access. You have a commercial grade 58mm portafilter, which is the same that you'd see in most cafes. Here's a few more changes here. So we have the same pressure gauge, but the stem on this pressure gauge has a hook right here. And then this has a lock-on feature. As you can see, it has these two little hooks right here. That lock-on feature allows this to kind of go in, and you can pull up this brew head when you're brewing, so you never have to like kind of push that out like you so would on the other one. This has two bolts on the bottom of the frame, and you need those two bolts to have this attached, versus this one has one bolt and you don't have to have it attached to use it. This locks on here, and it's a substantial brew head. You can see that here. It's got kind of the dispersion screen right there. So far, keep in mind, I've only had this for a week and a half or so now, but I still feel like I have enough to really compare them to on feature-wise. This also has this controller. Have wired into my kitchen, and I didn't want to haul that out just to show you a power brick. But it's a long cable, and you can also buy this without the cable for I can't remember exactly how much less, but it's a little cheaper if you do not buy the heating element with it. So that's the features that come with it. Let's talk about shots. That's something we came here for. That's a huge factor in which one produces a better quality shot, and it's the 58. I don't think that's a huge surprise to a lot of people. I think it could be a little different. Well, regardless, I think this is going to produce a better shot than the Flair Pro 2 if you use the 58 with the heating element, or if you use the 58X, which is coming soon and does not have the heating element, but it fits, this base fits perfectly on a Stag EKG kettle. The reason why this is going to produce a better shot is because temperature stability. That's one of my biggest beefs with the Flair, is the temperature stability on it. At first, when you just brew with Flair, when you don't have a semi-auto machine or a machine with a pump or something like that at home, you don't really realize the difference. But temperature stability is really, really difficult with this. There's some hacks around it, but I still just don't get as hot as a shot as I would like out of it. If you go to a cafe, they typically produce pretty hot shots because they have the portafilter locked in there. That's getting heated up. It'll heat up all the way up to the handle. The entire machine is just going to be completely warmed up. All the metal in there, it's not going to suck the heat out. So what happens when you put water, hot water in metal, it's just going to drop the temperature because the metal is going to be cold. So what you have to do is you have to do things like simply take this off, put this preheat cap on, fill it all the way up with water, dump it out, fill it up with water again, dump it out. Or you can do things where you steam it. You could put it inside your kettle. What I typically do is I would put this on my kettle like this and put that in there, and I could usually get it up to about 203 degrees and get it pretty hot that way. But then that leaves you the problem with this isn't preheated, so this is another way to suck metal, suck temperature out of metal. This also isn't preheated. It sounds like I'm trashing the Flair Pro 2 a lot right now, and I do want to say that I still love this machine. I've used it for years, and I'm happy with this purchase, and I think it's a great thing. I'm just being nitpicky here. I wouldn't be hesitant toward buying another one of these if this is my budget and if this is where I wanted to go with things. But with this heating mechanism here, you can heat this entire brew head up. You still have to pour water from a kettle in there, so don't get that confused. And it's going to give you a better shot and a hotter shot into your cup at the end of the day than this one will. And it's going to be with a lot less effort because of that heating mechanism in here. When it comes to accessories, when it comes to accessories, that's why the 58 comes in way higher than the Flair Pro 2. Because this is a commercial grade portafilter, I can use whatever tamper I want. I can use whatever basket size I want. I can use a different portafilter if I want to. I can use tamping stations. I can use distribution tools. I can use a ton of different funnels out there. You have an endless opportunity of accessories that are already made for you. And some of them you can get pretty cheap, and some of them you can get really, really expensive and really high quality. Versus the Flair Pro 2, you have the option of basically spending a good amount of money from somebody who makes these to fit the Flair Pro 2. So it gets a little bit expensive, and it's a little bit hard to find, and your options are way less than that. When it comes to travel friendly, I was honestly hoping that what I could do is I could just take the 2 bolts out and I could put it in the box that it came in and bring the 58 wherever I want. I find that to not be as easy as I thought it was because the Flair is substantially bigger. So let's do a little side by side here. I'm going to move a few of this stuff out of the way. You have the 58 here. This is the entire base. And I have this back side lined up here. So, okay, actually I made a mistake. This just looks bigger, but it's really not, like counter space wise, it really doesn't look that much different. This sits up just a tad higher, but here's the difference here. You pull this lever up. It's a little bit harder because it is attached to that pressure gauge. You pull that up, that's substantially high. I don't even know if you can actually see this on there, but it's probably like that high of a difference between these two. And the problem that I have with this is when you're using the Flair 58 in a kitchen, it makes it really hard to pull up the handle because of cabinet space. In fact, that there's only really one good spot that I can actually pull shots with this in the kitchen, unless I'm pulling the shot sideways like this and getting a side grip angle on there, which would probably be doable, and it wouldn't be difficult by any means. But if you want to do the traditional thing where you have the Flair sitting out and facing like this at the edge of the counter, and you're standing there and you have a front view on there to pull a shot, this handle goes up so high and really kind of gets in the way of cabinets. If you have a dedicated coffee bar or don't have cabinets, then it's going to be a little bit easier to fit there than this. I still ran into the problem with this a little bit, but it wasn't near to the point because of the length of this handle. I think when it comes to traveling, this is the way to go. So like I'm in a real I was getting rid of some machines and I had a really tough time. I got this and I have a robot. I had the Flair Pro 2. I have another machine. I kind of hoard coffee equipment a little too much, to be honest. But I had a hard time figuring out what I wanted to keep, because the problem with the Flair is it produces good shots. Not as great shots as I would get from the Flair 58. But I can travel with it. And I don't travel a ton, but like it's really nice to be able to go to different places, especially places that don't necessarily have good cafes. In the area that I was at when I went to the Grand Canyon a few years back, I went and got some coffee from a coffee shop, and it was absolutely disgusting because I literally watched them knock the puck out of the portafilter. I saw all the grounds in the portafilter, and they proceeded to grind directly on there into some old, gross, dark roasted beans that I had no idea how long were even sitting in that machine. And the shot was not near as great as what I did with using water from a sink in a hotel, which is not what I would recommend doing. Using the Flair Pro 2 and heating up with this little immersion heater thing, I could produce a better shot with this than I could at that random cafe that I stopped to in some small town in Arizona or New Mexico or wherever I was. And that's the thing. The problem I have is I really like this thing for traveling, but I don't have a need to keep this when if I'm sitting in my kitchen and I'm brewing shots and I'm always going to be at home, I'm going to want this because of the ease of use. Then I also run into this problem where with the Flair Pro 2, what happens is I'll put this all together, I will pull a shot, and then I'll go over to my sink and I'll just simply turn this over and dump out that little bit of excess water, and then I'll just take this entire brew head and I'll sit it on the counter. And I've done that for years. And the reason why I do that is because it lets the brew head cool down. I have no cleanup. It makes me get to work just a little bit quicker in the morning. That's my gripe with the 58. With the 58, I lock in this portafilter and pull my shot, and then I do have to knock it out in the knock box, and I'm not complaining about that. Don't hear me complain about that. But what I'm complaining about it is I pull a shot, I have to immediately then get another cup, and then pull another shot of just excess liquid to remove all of the water from the brew head. The reason for that is because on this, you wouldn't detach any part of the brew head. You would lift up the handle and maybe take the pressure gauge off. You lift up the handle and then you're done. Like, you're not going to have to worry about purging the rest of it. For this, because this brew head stays on there, which I like, which is great, I do have to pull a shot all the way through to remove all that excess water from it, because if I were to just simply turn this out, drop it, all this water would come onto the counter. I also do like how the drip tray is built into the frame here. So when you're sliding and moving around your Flair, you're not like sliding this drip tray that's getting out of the way on it. I'm not going to complain about the heating element. The cord does bother me a little bit. You can't hide the cord on a machine like this because it's a small machine and it's compact, and I like that about it. And I think they did the best that they could with the heating element, and I'm glad they put the heating element in it than not put the heating element in it. At first, I was disappointed, but the workflow of having that heating element is 10 times better than I originally thought. I thought I was going to be disappointed at first because that heating element was something like, it wasn't an all-manual machine as much as I'd like it to be, like the Flair Pro 2 was. And I was annoyed at having another cord on my counter. But the way they did it and adding that heating element, it was the right choice, and I think it was the best thing that they could have done. Again, since I'm in a kitchen and I don't have a dedicated coffee bar, like in this, if this was a coffee bar per se, I have no issues with how high the lever goes. In this cable, I can simply just put and run off the back side of the table or the coffee bar, versus in the kitchen I have no room to do that. So the cord storage was a little bit of beef on that. So if I were to choose one of the two between these, this is a hefty, this is like what, a $200 price point? Is that right? $200 price point between the Flair Pro 2 and the Flair 58. I have a hard time choosing. Because this definitely has its advantages. I like how the drip tray is built in. I like how I can just drop and go. I like how I can travel with it, even though I don't travel with a ton. That's not a big deal. They ask Flair customers for that. This is the best option you have for traveling out of all the Flairs, hands down. Pro 2. It's worth carrying a grinder and dialing in beans even that way, and not having to deal with the neo piece of the pressurized portafilter. Hands down, if I was traveling, I would choose this. But hands down, for shots in a house, I would choose this. I think it's producing the best quality. So the thing is, like, I wouldn't immediately buy the Flair 58 and think like, oh, I'm never gonna, like, I can get rid of my Pro 2. I actually sold this, by the way. So this is, it's kind of a sad little video for the fact that I no longer have this. I graciously made a deal with a friend, like, I'll sell you this, but you have to give it back to me as soon as my 58 comes in so I can compare the two for YouTube, and he did a great job of letting me do that. But I have a very hard time and a lot of almost regrets of letting this go, because of the fact that, like, I'm going on vacation and I'm going to be gone 3 weeks in the next couple months because of my job and the vacation that I chose, and I was like, oh, I don't have an espresso machine for those 3 weeks. Sure, I can make like a pour over and stuff like that. I'm not going to be a butt about it, but it's a sad thing to kind of not have this ability with it. And I was thinking like, oh, the Flair is going to be the end-all game, because I thought I was going to maybe I could throw it in a box, and it's just a little too big for that. It's a little too clunky for that. It's great for your home. So what I'm saying is I wouldn't immediately buy the 58 and sell my Pro 2 to buy it. If you need to, and if you just want it for at home, if you've never even traveled with your Flair Pro 2, then yeah, do it. But if you do travel, it makes it a little more questionable about which one you want. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Flair's line of espresso machines, is they all have their benefits and their drawbacks. I think they did a phenomenal job of the 58. I don't really think of much they could do differently. It wasn't designed to be travel, so I can't really put that as a nick on Flair for not making this travel friendly, because they listened to their customers and everybody had this on their counter. I think my main beef with the 58 and my main complaint is I just don't like the purge. But again, like, I don't have an idea for Flair. I don't know how they would have done it differently. I think they did a great job with everything they had, and I can't really complain at that. The build quality of all these things are great. You're not going to regret the purchase one way or another. When you're choosing between this, it all just really kind of depends on what you're aiming for. But for me, I think the best suitable machine for my house is the 58. I don't make milk drinks that much. I have a $1,500 heat exchanger machine, and I like the shots better out of the 58 than that. I'm missing a few things. That's a whole different story of comparing this to that, which that'll come. So subscribe, pay attention, and we'll have that out for you. But I hope this answered the questions that you want. Shot quality is going to be better out of the Flair, but it's not disappointing. Shot quality is better out of the 58, but it's not disappointing on the Pro 2. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below, and I would love to help you out. And I hope this helps you make a decision on which one you want to purchase. And remember, please subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.